Now, all revved up for more red-hot motorsport, it's the LG Super Racing Weekend with
Yokohama, power of performance.
Welcome to Brno in the Czech Republic, round 3 of the LG Super Racing Weekend, and of course that means race 3 in the FIA GT Championship. Just outside the beautiful city of Brno is the Autodrome, and basking in early summer sunshine, high temperatures, 36 degrees of track temperature for qualifying. We've already seen electrifying action from the European Touring Car Championship. Stick with us for the GTs. This is a race you will long have a trouble to forget. Well, we open the season on 2 Grand Prix circuits, at Magny-Cours in France and at Silverstone in Britain. This is a very different kettle of fish. No shorter, but with plenty of gradients change, uphill and downhill, and lots of tight, twisty sections. This will be one where the GT cars will not be able to stretch their legs except on the front straight. And this will give a chance for the NGT cars perhaps to excel. But how will that affect tyre wear, brake wear and fuel consumption? This is Christophe Bouchou, the pole man, saying I think it's going to be pretty tricky. The Ferrari's faster than us. The race is 3 hours long though, so we have some chance of victory. In fact, the number 1 car not on pole, he's on the outside of the front row of the grid.
We had a warm-up this morning and I was very fast as well. I know the circuit, the knowledge is really good for me, and I just hope I can do a big show for the spectators and we can do a good race, so I'm looking for it.
And what about your tires?
Well, I mean, everybody will struggle with tires here in the end because it will be warm, but I think we don't have any big advantage or disadvantage compared to the others.
There is local hero Thomas Enger, last weekend winning the Formula 3000 race in Austria by a comfortable margin over his Arden Racing teammate. This weekend on pole position by a similarly comfortable margin, a second and a half quicker in Super Pole than anyone else. He shares that Ferrari with Jean-Denis Delatraz and Andrea Piccini. Jamie Campbell-Walter starts the Lister in 3rd place, with Anthony Kumpen starting the Car Sport Holland car in 4th. Golin, Vos, Verdenro and Olivier Beretta starting their respective cars on rows 3 and 4 of the grid. And the pole position in NGT going to Stefan Ortelli in the Porsche. Again, Porsche battling with the Ferraris, and here fuel consumption again may be an issue for both sets of cars in the NGT Championship. Well, the window for fuel, according to Jamie Campbell-Walter and the Lister team, is around 29 laps of the 85-lap race distance, which means it will be just about a 2-stop race, but tyre wear and particularly fuel consumption may be a problem in the end. The red Ferrari on pole then. Ferrari's first pole for nearly a year in the FIA GT Championship. And Thomas Enger leading them very slowly up to the line. The GT cars all together. Enger guns it. Christophe Bouchou in the Viper are trying to come around the outside. Bouchou now with a full 2002 spec car. No more of this it's just a standard car nonsense from him. Jamie Campbell-Walter slots into 3rd, and a cautious start from Bobby Verdenro, 7th or so into the first turn in the other Lister Storm. In fact, in 6th place coming out of it behind the 2 Labra cars, the 2 Racing Box Holland cars, and the Ferrari and his teammate Jamie Campbell-Walter. Campbell-Walter being monstered from behind by Anthony Kumpen. Kumpen starting the race after doing qualifying in that car that he shares with Mike Hasemans for the first time. And David Leslie, lots and lots of dust on the track. It's going to be a very entertaining opening few laps.
It is. There's just so many cars out there, and they're taking up all of the circuit a little bit more across the grass. Some of them are coming through that first series of corners and kicking a lot of dust up. All that will do is throw that dust all over the circuit, so the people behind having slippier circuit, and maybe next time round the leaders will catch that dirt.
Further back, Jamie Campbell-Walter being bundled down the order. You saw in the last shot down the hill, he was being passed by the best of the Belmondo cars, and that is Fabio Babini, who won at Silverstone, of course, with Marc Duez. And boy, don't you think that the spirits are very high in that camp. Bouchou second then, and Thomas Enger leading them around his home. with his family, his sponsors, and all the local crowd cheering him on. He's raced here in every category he's raced in his life up until Formula 3000. He really does know this track in all weathers and in all conditions. From last year, the rain, the hail, the sleet and the snow, to this year's baking heat. He knows all about this track, and certainly it'll be interesting to see how the other two drivers in the Ferrari compare to him when he eventually hands it over. Bouchou's second for the Labra team, third Jamie Campbell-Walter, fourth Kumpen, fifth is the second of the Car Sport Holland cars, driven by Fabrizio Golin. He shares that with Luca Capillari, the Racing Box lineup from last year. But they're dropping back away. We've got four together now. And then behind the second of the Car Sport Holland cars, we've got the second of the Labra cars, then the Belmondo car, then Jamie Campbell-Walter on board with Anthony Kumpen. David, look at the vibration though. Is that maybe just a bad camera mounting? I'm sure if he's vibrating that early on, he's really going to struggle.
Yes, I think if that was there for the whole race, there'd be a major problem for them. These cars being endurance cars, lasting 3-hour race here, they really have to be very smooth, and that's not what I would call smooth. I would just take that as being a camber that's maybe not as well fixed as it should be.
Well, Thomas Enger leading at the moment and trying to get the jump on Bouchou, but Bouchou is sticking to his task, in fact easing away a fraction from Jamie Campbell-Walter in third. Bobby Verdon-Rowe back in 8th place behind Fabio Babini, but he's stabilised that problem now, and there you see the top half dozen. Bouchou 0.8 behind, Jamie Campbell-Walter nearly the same distance behind him. Then Babini, in fact Olivier Beretta has got past Bobby Verdon-Rowe. Hadn't spotted that in the back of the shot. Beretta sharing with Jean-Pierre Jarier, the number 9 Arch Racing Viper, normally co-driven by Francois Lafont, the Frenchman. But Beretta was racing here on Saturday in the Oreca prototype in the in the FIA Sports Car Championship, the open top cars, the Beretta driving the Oreca Judd, the Dallara chassis, and in fact that race won by Jan Lammer's Dome Judd, the first win for racing for Holland, and with Le Mans just a month away from this weekend, that will certainly have inspired him. But great view from on board the Ferrari here, David. But look, even in the middle of the Ferrari, there's a little map stuck on there. That presumably is not for Thomas Enger's benefit of exactly where the circuit goes.
Now what happens nowadays is, rather than trying to remember the names of all the corners of all the different circuits to race out during the year, you put a little map on there with numbers for the corners, so if you have a problem or you get stuck or you fall in gravel, then you just tell them which number of the corner you're in, rather than trying to remember all the names, because all these circuits around the world tend to have names to all the corners, with the exception of America, which tend to have numbers.
Well, on board with Fabrizio Golin, the number 4 car, still in the top half dozen, and again we saw it in the opening lap, but still very much a very dusty racetrack here, because it's been dry for several weeks here in the Czech Republic, and well, everything just beyond the curbs is now nice and free of grass, and plenty of dust being thrown up. You can see it coming up from the cars, and any time anybody drops a wheel, that must be a little bit distracting for the car right behind, and perhaps a little bit of gamesmanship there you can use to try and distract the driver behind you with that.
I think it's more somebody simply made a mistake and put a wheel off too far and got it onto the dirt. Gamesmanship is something you can do when you're slowing down or something, but certainly not when you're at full racing speed. You put a wheel off like that. That was just simply getting a bit too excited and using a little bit more of the circuit than it is actually there. Yes, for the guy behind, very distracting. He's getting a lot of dirt suddenly coming into the car, into the inlet. Trumpets in the front of these cars and trying to make life difficult.
Well, Golin pushing on there inside the top half dozen, and just in front of him you can see Vincent Vos. That's the white and red and black Viper there. That's the second of the Labra competition cars, and Bobby Verdon-Rowe just in front of him. At least I think that's the way around it is. Let's have a look at what the race order is. No, in fact, of course, that's Jamie Campbell-Walter, the lister there, because this car is in 5th spot there. You can see him. So that's Hazeman's, and there was the car we were on board with, car number 4. Getting myself completely confused down the order, because it is the second Labra car, Vincent Vos, that is further down behind Bobby Verdon-Rowe. So the two racing Car Sport Holland cars going very well. This is the battle for the NGT lead, and Stefan Ortelli started on pole in NGT, but Christian Pescatori sharing this car with Andrea Montermini. And David Leslie, we've seen that unlike last year, where the Ferrari won most races by only taking one fuel stop, this year with a slightly more powerful engine, that is now a thing of the past, and they and the Porsches very marginal indeed on one stop for fuel, so it is really now much more of a head-to-head battle.
It is without doubt. Last year the Ferrari would always start very slow, and it was down in sort of 5th or 6th place at the beginning of the race. Never qualified very well either, so they knew they had the upper hand in the racing because they could go so much further on their tank full of fuel. This year with a more powerful engine, they've got that power by using more fuel. They've certainly discovered that they can't do that, so they're qualifying at the front of the grid after we see them putting that in pole position, and they're having to run at the front of the race all the way through, so they're going to be in for their 2 stops exactly the same as what the Porsche have always done.
Lovely fluid run here from Thomas Enger, and this really shows, I think, his supreme experience here around these twists and turns. For a number of the drivers in the field, this is their first time here, and it's always more difficult to learn something that's tight, twisty and madgery, particularly because there seems to be a real flow to the sequences of corners here at Brno, and if you don't unlock that secret, then you come at each one of them on their own, and that's never a fast way around the track. Of course, professional racing drivers tend to learn tracks very quickly. It is their stock in trade, but in this GT field, it's not all professional racing drivers. There are some impecunious, I don't know what the opposite of impecunious, I suppose wealthy amateurs who also afford drives in the field. And you can see Enger is pulling away even from the most professional of the rest of the field, who are right behind him. Christophe Bouchou, Jamie Campbell-Walter in the Labra Viper and in the Lister Storm. And he's doing a great job in these opening laps, just showing the pace of this front-running Ferrari. Two Carsport Holland cars in 3rd and 4th. Anthony Kumpen, for the first time this season, having qualifying duties and starting and finishing the race, with Mike Hazelman's just doing the middle stint. That was supposed to happen in Silverstone, but for reasons I never quite got around to finding out, they changed their mind in the end, so Kumpen getting the first go here.
Kumpen, when he started this weekend, wasn't very sure about whether he'd be able to do that or not. Somehow or other he managed to hurt his back, and we could only take it that he had an accident the week before racing in a local race in Belgium where he comes from. But he's obviously felt that when he was out there qualifying, etc., that he was perfectly fit and able to carry on with what he was doing, and he's taken the opportunity to go out and do the larger part of the race, doing the first stint and the last stint.
Bobby Verden-Rowe in 8th place now, back ahead of Olivier Beretta, and that is an indictment, I think, of the speed of the Art car rather than Beretta himself. Beretta, double FIA GT champion in the Chrysler Vipers, run by the Orica team, and also double American Le Mans Series class champion in Orica-run Chrysler Vipers while they were still running in that series. So you certainly wouldn't say that Olivier Beretta has forgotten how to drive a Viper. I think you have to accept that the Jarier Lafont car is not as quick as the other front-running Vipers. And maybe a little bit of input from Olivier in terms of, well, at Orica we did it this way, might help steer the team in a slightly forward or more forward direction. Again, Thomas Enger leading quite comfortably at the moment, and David's pulling away at almost a second a lap, which will give him, well, there you are, at the moment his last lap just 0.3 slower than his fastest of the race so far. At a second a lap, that will give him a guaranteed pit stop and back into the lead kind of pit window if they're going to go for some, I don't know, 28, 29 laps.
Yes, he's certainly pushed the car very hard at the beginning. He's doing a really nice job. He's actually very smooth. He's not running over the dirt and such like he is, using all the curbs, making the best use of the circuit that's available to him. But he just looks so neat and so tidy. As you said earlier, he knows this circuit inside out, back to front. He's been racing here for so many years. And on some of the corners, you can just see the lines he takes just before the end of the lap. It's just so much neater. He positions the car exactly where he wants it to try and get the best line out of the next corner and get that run along the longer straights, rather than have to fight fast through some of the slower corners and then slow onto the straights.
He must be loving this. At home in the, well, the glory of racing a Ferrari, apart from anything else, and of course fastest in Super Bowl by a comfortable margin, and also leading the race early on and driving away from the opposition. And he knows that he's got a pro-drive built Ferrari underneath him, so it is about the best piece of kit that you can hope to get as a one-off drive in the series. Enger, of course, concentrating on the Formula 3000 Championship. You'll see him in action again next weekend at Monaco on Eurosport. And having won the last race at Austria, last year's championship runner-up, now looking very much like the strongest title challenger there is out there. And I have to say, if he fancies going GT racing for a living, I think he can make a pretty good living at that as well.
He's certainly making a very good race here. He's just stretching all the time, lap after lap. He's just stretching himself away from the rest of the field and making that car look exceptionally good with the ability that he knows on this circuit. He knows exactly when to change up, when to short shift up another gear to get the most traction out of a corner. And as I said, using every part of the circuit without having to use all the dirt on the outside.
Now this is the view from Christian Pescatori, and no longer clear track in front of him. Pescatori has dropped to 4th in the NGT class. Right there he's chasing the silver car. That's Jürgen von Gartzen in car number 60. That's the car he'll share with Ian Khan. But it's Philip Pater's Auto Orlando Porsche and Stefan Ortelli's Freisinger Motorsport car that are 1st and 2nd in NGT. Now, from our onboard camera earlier on, David, we saw that Pescatori did have clear road in front of him, so he has made a mistake under the pressure of these 3 Porsches, clearly unseen by us. And actually, maybe that was when we had that little bit of broken up picture coming back from him. Maybe that's what the director was trying to show us, that he was sort of being passed or something there. But down to 4th in class, 3 Porsches in front of him, 2 on Dunlops, 2 on Pirellis, and of course the Ferrari on Pirellis as well. And Pirelli with a new tyre in the NGT class, which the team seem to reckon was worth about 1.5 seconds a lap. So Dunlop will be very disappointed indeed to hear that news, because that will increase the onus on them to retaliate in the NGT class. And of course a 3-way tyre battle in the GT class with Michelin and Dunlop and Pirelli all at it. But at the moment, it looks like the Porsches are starting to pull away from the Ferrari, and 12 months ago you would never have given that credit as a likely happening unless the Ferrari was on a fuel-saving mission.
Yes, that's what used to happen last year. At this point of the race we wouldn't have been very worried, but for some reason they seem to have made some sort of mistake. Maybe we can see it now. No, this is just him simply losing 3rd place. So for some reason he's managed to drop himself away from the lead and drop himself back to 4th position.
Well, could it be, I wonder, that they are facing up to the fact that they're not going to be able to race at the front and do one stop, and are they now going back to last year's plan of a Le Mans type strategy, if you like? We've only got so much fuel, we can only go this fast, and it doesn't matter what anybody else can do.
I'm pretty sure that all 3 Porsches in front are not doing the opposite of that. They're not all going out there to go as fast as they can. These guys usually split between them which ones are going fast and which ones are going for the fuel economy to make sure they can run a set pace throughout the whole of the 3-hour race. There is always a possibility at some point during the race of having a pace car, which of course will slow everything down and give you a little bit of extra fuel to try and get towards the finish. It's always nice to have a little bit of fuel in reserve, but to expect something like that or to rely on something like a safety car is very, very dangerous indeed. It means you usually end up running out of fuel at the end when the safety car doesn't happen. But no, they're out there, and I think they're just simply not as fast as they felt that they might be at this moment in time, because the Porsches are actually just easing themselves away. So whether it's the new tyres or whether it's the amount of fuel that they've got, I'm not sure, but certainly they're making this look a little bit harder than what we were expecting from the Ferraris.
Well, we do know that the Ferrari did use a new set of tyres for Superpole, and that means its tyres are 3 laps older than the Porsches. Ortelli, for instance, who was fastest in qualifying but not in Superpole, we know that his tyres had done 30-odd laps before he actually went out and used them in Superpole, so they were keeping new tyres for the race. Maybe that has just swayed the balance there as well, as you suggest. Well, our onboard camera there from the Golan Car Sport Holland car, showing him working his way through the field, or through the corners in the middle of the top half dozen, but leaving the field in his wake. Thomas Enger still romping away with this one, I'm sure much to the delight of the sun-baking Czech crowd here at Brno. He is increasing his advantage. Still Christophe Bouchou in 2nd place, still Jamie Campbell-Walter in 3rd, and still Anthony Kumpen in 4th. 2nd, 3rd and 4th very close together, less than 1.5 seconds covering those 3. But at the moment, well, it looks as though Enger is going to have to do something very foolish, or his teammates will have to throw away this lead, because this car is absolutely rocketing round and building up a very formidable lead. 8 laps in, he's 6.5 seconds clear of Bouchou, Campbell, Walter and Kumpen, with Golin and Voss dropping away off that second-placed three-way battle. Thomas Enger leads in the Czech Republic in the GT class. Welcome back to round 3 of the FIA GT Championship at Brno in the Czech Republic. We're 18 laps into the race. Here is the battle way behind Thomas Enger's race-leading Ferrari as they come onto the straights. That, in fact, is not Enger. That's one of the NGT Ferraris. But here is the battle for second place. Christophe Bouchou with Jamie Campbell-Walter pulling out into the first corner. Makes the move for the lead down the inside. David, we've seen that. That's a copybook first-turn move here at Brno. Plenty of long right-hander there to sort it out as well. And Jamie Campbell-Walter moves up into second place. Lap 21, and Andrea Gabagnati's Ferrari spins and is hit by Lilian Brynner in the 22 Ferrari. There she is, climbing out of the passenger side. Looks like she's, well, a touch dazed actually from that one. Bent over there, but stationary in the road, the BMS Scuderia Italia 550 Maranello, and that will bring out yellow flags and the safety car. So David, now 21 laps in, and we know that this is probably a little early in the fuel window. I guess everybody just conserves their fuel and pushes the window on a little further.
Yes, that would normally happen. We see the car stuck there in the middle of the road, so at some point they're going to have to bring the safety car out in order to rescue that car. There's the board being hung out and the yellow flag being waved. The board will say SC on it, the safety car. So most people, I think, will sit out and stay on the circuit and try and extend that window.
Somebody did flash into the pits, though, behind the safety car board there, and it looked as though it might have been a Ferrari. Now, bearing in mind that there is only one other red Ferrari, and that's race leader Thomas Enger. You can see why they need the safety car, though, don't you? Because the field's coming round under yellow flags and still going, oh, blimey, there's a car in the middle of that corner. So it's obviously not a very clear view on the hill up towards that corner. And it is, the race leader is in the pits. Thomas Enger taking fuel and all tyres. Well, now this is interesting. Yes, he's taking new Pirellis as well. New Michelins, rather.
Yes, they're doing a full stop here. What I didn't notice, or we didn't notice, was whether he was staying in or not.
Now, that's a very good call. I wonder, let's have a look if we can just get a view inside the cockpit. Well, he's not standing around beside the car, and normally the other driver would have been helping plug in radios and so on. So I would assume that is Enger's helmet. He's still in the car. Now then, he's given up track position, he's given up a handy lead. Mind you, of course, because of the safety car, he'd lost that handy lead anyway. 20-odd seconds he had. But an interesting call. Now, new tyres compared to everybody else's 20-odd lap old tyres, but full tanks of fuel as the safety car pulls in. They only just got that one done in time, didn't they? He's right at the back of the pack, though.
He is, but with a car, with the power that car has down these straights, it'll take him very little time to get past the NGT cars, and a little bit longer to get past the front-running GT cars. But he'll make that up reasonably quickly.
Well, of course, he's not on the end of the queue. In fact, he is. He's nearly on the end of the queue there. So he did manage to get round fairly quickly. But here is our new race leader, still out. Nobody else apart from Enger in the lead group stopped. So Jamie Campbell-Walter leads Christophe Bouchou, Anthony Kumpen in third as they work their way through the NGT leaders. Well, the first of the proper fuel stops coming on lap 24. And this is Kumpen handing over to Hazemans. Well, that was a very early pit stop, lap 30 now. We're after the safety car 2 laps. This is the fuel window really opening. And you can see David Terrian taking over the number 1 car. Paul Knapfield takes over the 15 Lister from Bobby Verden-Rowe. Both of them taking fuel and tyre service from their crews. Paul Knapfield, whoops, hot V12, catching him out there as he gets going again. finally extending the 29-lap window until lap 32. Race leader Jamie Campbell-Walter brings in the Lister Storm, and he will hand it over to Nicholas Springer. This is the lead car, don't forget. And as he runs up to the board there, they are hosing down the radiators with cold air to try and keep it cool, stop it boiling at a standstill. Lawrence Pierce as ever at the nose. But Dunlop technicians look happy with the tyres. It's fuel only, David, and that might be a big advantage.
Yes, that's going to make their pit stop that little bit quicker than everybody else's. So their ideal will be to get out there and give themselves a bit of a lead. Well, they had the lead when they came in. It was only by like 1 or 2 seconds. But not having to stop and now put the tyres on, because you can't do the fuel and the tyres at the same time, then they've saved themselves 20 or 30 seconds. So that should give him quite a bit of a lead when he comes out there.
Nicholas Springer, I think, slightly more Swiss than British, unless he's changed his driving licence since the last race, but he comes out in the lead of the race anyway. Or rather, he comes out in the what was the race-leading car, and he is still in the lead, 34 seconds ahead. But in second place is Mike Hasemans in the Carsport Holland car, and we know that Nicholas is on old tyres, whereas everybody else is on fresh tyres after the first stop. And we also know in his defence that Nicholas is an amateur driver as opposed to a professional, and he knows, and we know that he is not quite necessarily on the pace of the front runners. However, they have managed to get in and out without losing the lead, and that might be all important later on. Incidentally, the NGT class still going up, but Thomas Enger is in the pits, and the Ferrari being pushed back, and that looks pretty terminal. We hear engine trouble is the cause of Enger's car being pushed back into the garage. 40 laps into the race, and Nicholas Springer leading from that car. Mike Hasemans, the 34-second lead at the end of lap 32, is down to nothing. Paul Matfield third in the Lister Storm, Mark Duez fourth in the Belmondo Viper, David Terrian in fifth place in the number 1 Labra Viper, so they've had a shocking turnaround. But Mike Hasemans looking for the race lead. The Carsport Holland team yet to win this season. Lister have won one, Belmondo have won one, Carsport Holland want to win one. Good opening stint by their first driver, Anthony Kumpen, puts the Carsport Holland car on target, and Hasemans at this stage going 6 seconds a lap quicker than Nicholas Springer, reels him in, disposes of him, and takes the lead.
We've got 2 problems. First of all was that when it was the safety car, I came in immediately because I thought, you know, we can refuel the car and change the tires as in American Le Mans Series rules or Formula 3000 rules. But the problem was there was a red light in the end of pit lane. I have to wait for a safety car when they approached the start-finish straight. And we lost 1 lap, so that was one problem, and the other problem was that I was pushing then to try to catch the leaders, and luckily or unlucky there was an all on the circuit. One Porsche blew up the engine, and in Schwann's curve I went off just behind one of the Vipers. He went off as well, so I just couldn't do anything with it, and there was something broken with the engine. We don't know yet what happened. Hard luck.
Well, Nicholas Springer in second place. Let's hear from his co-driver, Jamie Campbell-Walter.
I was stuck behind Christophe Boucher at the beginning. I couldn't really get past him. And I managed to get past him just before the safety car came out for Enger's crash, I think, into the first corner. And then I managed to pull away a nice gap. And the car's very nice. It's handling quite well. It's very hot.
And let's hear from Anthony Kumpen, whose car leads.
There's quite a difference between Jamie and between Nicholas. So, but the race is still not finished, and also Nicholas now, he didn't change tires, so he's driving on all tires, which makes it more difficult. And apparently everybody is having tire problems, but our car is going very well.
Indeed it is. The Carsport Holland car leads in the FIA GTs. Brno in the Czech Republic just after half distance in the third race in the FIA GT Championship. 47 of 85 laps, and here David Terrian in the Labra Viper chasing Paul Matfield and Nicholas Springer. Mattfield in third place in the number 15 Lister Storm. Nicholas Springer in second. Carsport Holland car leading at the moment. And up there into third place goes David Terrian. Took over that car, of course, from Christophe Bouchou at the pit stop. They dropped down from third place to fifth position with a bit of a shocking stop for that car. Mattfield sticking with it, his first race, his first year in the GT class. Last year was his first year of car racing. Raced in Britain in a Porsche with Tim Sugden in the British GT Championship in the 911 GT3R. And really enjoying getting to grips with these big, powerful, high downforce GT cars. Well, Terrian, of course, last year racing in NGT as well, but he raced in the FIA series with Christian Pescatori in the Ferrari 360 Modena. They won the championship with the JMB team. And at the moment, the Ferrari is struggling a little in the NGT category. Now, as Terrian closes down Nicholas Springer in second place, this could put the listers from second and third back to third and fourth. And uphill, here he comes down the inside, and through he goes. The yellow and blue car in the background, incidentally, Mark Dues and Fabio Babini, oh dear! And Mattfield having a look at Springer as well. This is shades of Bobby Verdenroe and Julian Bailey last year at Magny-Cours, David Leslie. The two teammates, though, got through, as they did last year, without any collisions.
Yes, they did. As we said earlier with the touring cars, for having two teammates hit each other, knock each other off would be a real disaster for the Lister team. But that didn't happen. Then Mattfield got through, taking that third place and pulling himself away from Nicholas Springer, who's now in fourth place.
Well, of course, Paul Mattfield taking over from Bobby Verdenroe, like the number 1 car, like the number 3 car, our race leader, on fresh tyres. Nicholas really among the GT cars, as far as we're aware, the only man still on used tyres, and that gives Jamie Campbell-Walter fresh tyres for the final stint, which is probably more important of the two, but it does mean that Nicholas is at a speed and a grip disadvantage, and there you can see just behind him he was being lined up by Mark Dues, the Belgian driver, and in fact in the next shot Dues in the background there has got past him. So Nicholas has gone in a lap and a half from second place down to fifth, but you know, all 3 cars in front of him still very close together, and in fact Paul Mattfield, having already been passed by David Terrian in the Labra car, is now closing, well, not maybe closing up on him hugely, but sticking with him and following him round, maybe trying to pick up a few tips about good lines as well.
This is very good for Mattfield. He was saying earlier on that he just doesn't quite have the confidence in the car and the amount of downforce it has to be able to take some of the corners just as fast as the car will actually go. Certainly some of the fastest circuits like Magny-Cours, the first race meeting, that first corner is really, really fast. He was a little bit slower around there than what Bobby Verdenroe was, but he's building up, he's learning at every meeting, he's learning how much downforce the car has, the fact he can actually go through the corners faster than it actually feels when he's sitting behind the steering wheel. And this is really good experience for him, sitting here behind the Chirot car of David Terrian. So he'll use that car now to follow him and pick a few ideas up, a few lines up. Remember, and only his second season, this guy's doing very well. Having said that, he's just done very badly.
Oh dear, he has. He's gone off on the final corner. Maybe just carried a little bit too much speed there onto the front straight, and he has gone off into the gravel. And that is third place there, going begging. That puts Nicholas Springer, of course, back in front, and Mark Dues back ahead of this car as well. So, ahead of this car. But now I wonder if he can drive it out of there. He's perilously close to the edge of it. But is that tyre damage? Did he... I'm not sure if he bounced off the tyres. I don't think so. I think he's just spun out there into the gravel. You can see the tyre marks across the curbs on the bottom left of the screen. Let's have a look here. Just trying to carry a little too much speed through the corner. Tail end stepped out and he had no room to rescue it. Now then, 56 laps into the race, coming out of the pits, the former leader. This is now Anthony Kumpen at the wheel of the number 3 Carsport Holland car. Mark Dues has handed his car over to Fabio Babini as well. And here is the battle for 4th and 5th places. This is 69 laps into the race. 4th place is the number 1 Labra Viper. 5th place is the number 14 Lister Storm. The good battle shaping up here because the car right in front of them, the Carsport Holland car, is also on the same lap. So too is Fabini's Belmondo Viper. So we have got a nice four-way battle shaping up, working their way past Gerald Reed and Mauro Casadei's Proton Porsche. That's one of the NGT, I beg your pardon, that's one of the GT class Porsches. And let's have a look in replay here of how those positions changed, with the Lister getting boxed up behind one of the NGT cars out onto the straight there, and the Labra car slipping by. Lap 74 now, and the battle, oh, hello, lock up there, and that's Fabio Babini, just out of shot of the camera, but certainly in earshot of the camera's microphone. Babini from second place, don't forget he was in the lead of that little group of four cars, drops it into the gravel. And that is the car that won at Silverstone with Babini and Martin Dues. You can hear the starter motor churning on that one. Here is the battle then for second place. Remind you that the Carsport Holland car of Anthony Kumpen leads. Carsport Holland car of Fabrizio Golin is in second place. And then Christophe Bouchou and Jamie Campbell-Walter third and fourth. And David, Jamie on the back of this group must be looking forward to an entertaining close to the race. Certainly a chance to leapfrog between these guys and up into second place, even if the leader might be too far away. Down the inside he goes.
Yes, it's a move he made earlier in the race, down the inside to get past Bouchou. Exactly the same thing there. Jamie will be loving this. He knows the car's quick. He's been quick in the first couple of meetings, so he'll be out there using all the ability he can with that car to get a front now, not only of this, the Chiro Viper, but also the Carsport car in front.
Good job. Repeats the move on him. Now 76 laps in, and this is the race leader in the gravel. Onboard cameras, Anthony Kumpen tries to drag the car out of the gravel, and he's lost a left front wheel. Or is it the left rear, or is it both left wheels? I can't see anything in the wheel arches. It's the left rear wheel the way it's sitting down, isn't it? Yes, it has. The car has shed a wheel. Now, whether that's a broken hub, a broken wheel rim, or whatever, it's lost the left rear wheel, and the race leader is in the gravel. That leaves his teammate, Fabrizio Golin, leading from Jamie Campbell-Walter and Christophe Bouchou. Round 3 of the LG Super Racing Weekend. Highlights of the FIA GT race from Brno in the Czech Republic, and we're now on lap 77 of 85 race distance, and Fabio Babini, the race leader, because his teammate Anthony Kumpen was pitched off into the gravel when the left rear wheel fell off the car. And David Leslie, that makes this three-way battle even more important, because it's now for the race win.
It's fantastic to have these three cars up at the front so far into the endurance race, and they're separated by about 1.5 seconds between the three of them. And it's a real battle. You can see Jamie trying yet again to get past the Chiro Viper. These two have had a ding-bong battle all the way through the race, passing each other. We usually see Jamie passing Bouchou, but we don't see the shots of Bouchou passing Jamie. Somewhere along the line, they're obviously quicker in different parts of the circuit. But absolutely fantastic to have this so close. We can see for some reason the front of Jamie's car, the front bonnet seems to be a little bit loose and flapping. So whether he's had some damage or touched the back of somebody, I'm not sure. But certainly it's quite the position it should be in.
Well, at the moment then, with 2 laps to go after this, 3 cars, there is your podium, but not necessarily in that order, I have to say. It could go any way. Jamie Campbell-Walter perhaps with the advantage on the freshest tyres, but it's been a long while since they've had fuel. A long while since they've had fuel. And the car that had fuel longest to go, it's the lead pair. They were in on lap 53 of 85, which is 53, 60, 70, 80. That's 32 laps from the end of the race, when Jamie Campbell-Walter reckons that it's only a 29-lap fuel window on the Lister Storm. They are right now at the area where they should be running out of fuel, and you're right, there is definitely damage on the nose of his bonnet, but he's going to go for the lead here anyway, any moment, isn't he?
He's very much going to try and do that. We said about the fuel, we know the Lister can do the 32 laps, because it did do in the very first stint.
Ah, but that was with a safety car as well.
It was, but the Lister, we also know, has always been much better than what the Viper has at fuel. So is he pushing really hard, making the Viper use more than it actually should be doing to try and stay out there in first place?
Now, the question is, if they all run out of fuel, who's in fourth place? And who's going to be rubbing their hands with glee? Incidentally, Mark Leib, young German driver sharing Stefan Ortelli's car, is leading in NGT. Andrea Montermini has just spun in second place in NGT in the Ferrari that he shares with Pescatori, but he is still in second place. Toto Wolff is in third place in the car he shares, the Porsche he shares with Philip Pater. So that's the NGT lineup as we go on to the penultimate lap. And Jamie Campbell-Walter still being held off by Fabrizio Golin, and this is a gutsy performance by Golin. He really knows that he can almost smell the checkered flag, but Campbell-Walter looks just to have a mile an hour or two perhaps of better speed than the Car Sport Holland car. But really, David, this one too close to call. This could go either way.
Yes, it could. Car Sport Holland have been trying so hard to win a race this year. They've always been quick. Every circuit they've gone to so far, they've been right there. They've run at the front. They've led every race at some point or another. And here they are leading again. And with only about a lap and a half to go to get to the finish, they'll be thinking about keeping that car on the straight and narrow, not making a mistake, just making the car as wide as possible, keeping Jamie behind.
And of course, by rights, don't forget, this should actually still be the battle for second, because Anthony Kumpen was well clear in the number 3 Car Sport Holland car until a left rear wheel fell off, so they were actually 20 laps from home, or 23 laps from home. First and second, or looking at a potential 1-2 finish would have been their, first ever, and what a result that would have been. But Campbell-Walter knows that time is ticking away. 85 laps or 3 hours, it certainly will not make the 3-hour mark now, but 85 laps, and we're on lap 84. And Campbell-Walter again looking all over the back of Golin. Well, we've seen how good the Lister is compared to the Bouchou Viper under braking into the first turn. As they come onto the start-finish straight, you've got to believe that Campbell-Walter will be thinking about that foremost in his mind.
Yes, what he needs to do is get himself a good run onto the straight, and that's where this corner here comes in. He gets himself a good run. Look at that, straight to the back of the car. He really got on the throttle very early there to try and make a good run, and he's not sure. He's had to maybe lift out just at the end, but he's right on his tail going down here. This is where he'd love to do it. This is where he's done it before with the other cars. Sure enough, he's done it yet again. Favourite place for Jamie Campbell-Walter today, into that first corner.
Last lap of the race. Oh, and what's happened to the Viper? He ran out wide into the dirt, and I think had to have a major saving moment there to avoid putting it off into the gravel. He really desperately held on under braking, and as Jamie had the apex on the line, he ended up maybe 2 yards further off to the left-hand side of the racing line, and had a major saving job on his hands there to avoid sticking it into the wall. And that leaves Christophe Bouchou's Labre competition car in second place. But Jamie Campbell-Walter takes the lead of this race on the final lap. Has he got enough fuel to make it through to the end? Don't forget that the Labre competition Viper, in fact, stopped 2 laps after Jamie. So they've got slightly more fuel, perhaps, as he goes past the Freisinger Porsche that leads in NGT. And now, Freisinger, of course, won Stefan Ortelli and Nianarim the first race on the road at Magny-Cours, only to lose it in post-race scrutineering. Their fuel tank was 2 litres too big, but that will certainly have been rectified since then. And there in front of them, there is the 4th place car in the NGT class, the Auto Orlando car of third place car, in fact, of Philip Pater and Toto Wolff. So nearly a lap behind the Freisinger Motorsport car. And Jamie Campbell-Walter then with less than half a lap now, just to climb up to the final corner and into the run to the checkered flag. It's all uphill now to the checkered flag, so if you're running low on fuel, David, that's got to be a worrying concept.
It is. The fuel tanks in these are situated right in the middle of the car, between the driver and the engine. You just see the fuel filler cap behind the door there. And they've got a little fuel gauge inside the car. He'll know exactly what's going on in there. Unfortunately, he knows it, we don't at the moment.
Checkered flag is ready for Jamie Campbell-Walter and Nicholas Springer to win their 2nd race of the season. 2 wins from 3 races for the number 14 Lister Storm. And again, I'm afraid, Bobby Verdenroe and Paul Natfield's car fails to finish here. But, well, winning on the last lap, and the Dunlop tyre technicians will be very happy. They win in GT, they also win in NGT, because the Freisinger Motorsport car of series debutant Mark Leib that he shared with Stefano Ortelli, wins in the NGT class and wins handsomely. The number 50 Ferrari half a lap back, and the third place car, well, he's just passed him after the line, but nearly a full lap back. So Christophe Bouchou and David Tarian take second, but Jamie Campbell-Walter and Nicholas Springer, the winners in Brno. Wow, winners at Magny-Cours, failed to win, unfortunately, for Lister at home at Silverstone, but winning again in Brno, and that extends their championship lead. So Bouchou and Tarian in second place, just 2.8 seconds back. Capillari and Golin's car, Fabrizio Golin, losing the lead on that final lap and dropping a monster 18 seconds back in that last lap. Maybe they were really on empty in that third place Viper. Fourth place, Vincent Vos and Carl Rosenblad in the second Labra car. Fifth place, Mark Duis and Fabio Babini. Sixth place, the other Belmondo car. And seventh, our NGT winner. That's Stefano Ortelli and Mark Leib in the Porsche with the Ferrari. Pescatore Montermini second in NGT, and Philip Pater and Toto Wolff third in NGT ahead of Jürgen von Gartzen and Ian Kahn, the third of the Ferraris, and then Van Merkstein and Bastians in the Porsches. So two of the top six only in NGT were Ferraris this time. It looks like the Porsches have certainly bloodied the Ferraris' nose on this twisting and demanding Brno track. But interesting result there with Campbell-Walter and Springer coming out on top, David. Good stuff, and they lead the championship as a result. Bouchou and Tarian dropping further back in second place. Duis and Babini next up. And in the NGT class, well, it's still the Ferrari drivers that lead, but Jürgen von Gartz and Ian Kahn running them close. Interesting course again, yes. Very good early session for me, says Ortelli. I started in fourth, and pretty good passing manoeuvres to get up into the lead of the race. I managed to get a gap again after the restart from the pace car. And my partner Mark, he said, did a fantastic job to take the lead and win. Happy with your car and tyres? Yes, we've been very strong since the beginning of the season. We won in Magny-Cours, even though we did get disqualified. Silverstone, I was at the front of the race as well. Unfortunately, we didn't make it onto the podium. And here, we're very strong as well. Tyres were much more consistent than our rivals. Very happy with the package, the Porsche and the Dunlop tyres. It was really great today. Christophe Bouchou says, incredible race. In the final laps, the positions were changing all the time. Up to 10 laps from the finish, anybody could win. That made it very difficult, also very hard to overtake because the track was so dirty offline. And what about David Tarian saying, we can see that the championship is open. How do you see your rivals? He said, well, obviously we have to try and look at our strategy to try and beat cars like the Listers because they have a bit more speed than us. At the end of the race, though, Christophe pushed very hard, pushed to the maximum, and I was confident still, but it looks like the Listers have got an advantage. He said the other Vipers, we pretty much had them under control. So Jamie Campbell-Walter then, a last gasp victory here in Brno.
I feel like a pay rise. That was hard, really hot. But the team, the tyres, Dunlop, the mechanics, everyone has done a A1 job. And of course my teammate Nick Springer kept it on when the pressure was up, and I'm pretty hot.
What do you think of the last lap of the race, when he passed the car?
Really had a heart attack.
Well, fair comment, I think, by Jamie as well there, David Leslie. Nicholas Springer on warm tyres against fast rivals with fresh tyres. He really stood up to the pressure, didn't crack, didn't drop it, brought it back in one piece, and allowed Jamie to do his job.
That's exactly what got the co-drivers there for. He's there to help and win the race, and Nicholas did a very good job of that. He did everything that was asked of him, and there they are, standing on that top step. Fantastic for them.
And there is our tyre battle. Dunlop winners, second place Michelin, third place Pirelli, but it could have gone any way on that final lap. So there you go. I told you it was worth waiting for the last lap here at Brno. The FIA GTs, the European Touring Car Championship, both producing superb weekends racing. Round 4 of the LG Super Racing Weekend is the first weekend of June before we head off to Le Mans, of course, a fortnight before, and it's from Jarama in Spain. So join us, please, for that. We will be back, of course. I'll have the Super Racing Weekend magazine on Wednesday. That's 6 in Europe, 5 p.m, slightly earlier than normal on British Eurosport. You'll be able to catch up with the highlights that you may have missed from the touring cars and from the FIA GTs. We look forward with greater interest even than normal to the next race at Jarama. I wonder what that will produce for us. Maybe the first non-alpha win in the touring cars. And if it is, will it be Volvo or might it be BMW? Well, we'll let you know in a fortnight from this weekend. But meanwhile, from Brno, from me, Martin Haven, a very big thank you indeed to David Leslie. We'll see you next time out. Bye now.
With LG Electronics, digitally yours. That was the LG Super Racing Weekend with
Yokohama, power of performance.